Welcome to PhD with Women on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Tasha Penwell. Topic: How to cultivate innovation with Amazon Web Services, AWS. Episode 89 starts here. Let me remind you. This is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo. And empathy is critical when you are cultivating innovation with Amazon Web Services.
Mhm.
Let me mention some of the things that's been happening in the world of female leadership or entrepreneurship or women in tech. Excited to read Margareta Manguson's latest book, The Swedish Art of Aging Exuberantly, Life Wisdom from Someone Who Will Probably Die Before You, The Swedish Art of Living and Dying. A great way to learn from someone who lived all over the world. And another congratulations to Nemat Shafik on becoming the first woman president of Columbia University. She was also the first woman president of the London School of Economics. She was also the youngest person to serve as the vice president of the World Bank. So many achievements from an inspiring woman like Nemat Shafik. I recommend you follow her.
Mhm.
Let's go back to today's episode. We are going to learn how to cultivate innovation with Amazon Web Services. The idea of innovating is one of that my cats have a different opinion on. The one that we all want to believe in. It's the idea that things can change, that there is always room for improvement. But how do you create an environment where innovation is encouraged? Where can people stay? Where can they succeed? How do you create an innovation hub in a place where isn't much opportunity? In a world of increasing digital access, the rural and underserved communities struggle to keep up with the changes in technology and often miss out on the opportunity to learn tech skills. With Bytes and Bits, Tasha Penwell has been working hard to create opportunities for community members to stay, study, and succeed in rural Ohio by giving them access to tech education programs such as Amazon Web Services cloud computing. Our positivity hack delivered guest and Bytes and Bits founder Tasha is an educator and digital marketer who left a career in higher education to focus on teaching technology skills and in underserved communities. And she's just joining us from a conference. Where is that conference,
The
Tasha?
conference was in New Orleans. I'm in Long Beach, Mississippi right now.
Yes, you just told me that you preferred a nice view outside of your hotel window.
Yes, yes. I prefer the beach over the city any day of the week.
Absolutely, I can relate to that. So, Tasha, tell me, what was the conference about? Because it's very related to education.
Correct. Correct. The conference was the Future of Education Technology Conference, and its focus is on presentation. So, my presentation, for example, was how Snapchat, the popular social media platform, can be used in the classroom as a learning tool. Whether you're teaching programming, digital marketing, digital design, maybe a business class, or like I said, a marketing class, there's a way that you can utilize Snapchat, which is a platform that young students, high school students are already using, they're already familiar with, and it's kind of like that carrot at the end of the stick. And that's kind of what the whole conference was about, is how technology can be used to innovate the classroom experience, have the students engaged and more curious about the opportunities that are available. One of my favorite things to say is that education equals opportunities. And my son has heard me say that I don't know how many times, and I think it's starting to click in for him. But education does equal opportunities, and FETC was a great opportunity for other educators to learn about the different things that they could bring to the classroom just to expand upon that the educational
Mhm.
experience.
Excellent. And you're personally also experienced with AWS and you're teaching
Correct.
about AWS. And maybe not many people know what AWS
Hmm.
is, and until their Roomba goes out,
Hmm. Yep.
or their package gets stranded, or delayed exams.
Hmm.
Tell us about what AWS is.
So AWS, the way I usually introduce it is like everybody knows what Amazon is. Love it or hate it, I think everybody knows who Jeff Bezos and Amazon.com is. So AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's a subsidiary of Amazon. It's like another business still under the Amazon umbrella, and it provides cloud computing services. And the best way to explain cloud computing services is it's somebody else's computer that you're using. You're just connecting to them through the internet. And there's a lot of great opportunities with AWS in regard whether you're interested in data analytics, cybersecurity, development, AI, machine learning, augmented reality. There's a lot of great things. Netflix, I think we all know what Netflix is. They're actually hosted on AWS, and it removes some of the barriers. One of my favorite things about AWS, it removes some of the barriers for entrepreneurs to launch a new idea, because they don't have to invest in the capital expenses that are usually associated if you're going to host something locally. They can deploy some services in the cloud. There's no contract. If it works, great. If not, little harm, little foul when it comes to expenses, and you can pivot as needed.
So, in terms of local hosting versus Amazon hosting,
Mhm.
what's the difference?
So local hosting would be you have an on-premise server, racks, infrastructure, and you're responsible for everything maintenance-wise. And that can be security, that can be maintenance, that can be updates, that can be anything. It's yours, and you've also invested thousands of dollars into purchasing that hardware. And then you have the scalability. So maybe you have more demand on services than you anticipated, and you're not able to fulfill the demand for those requests coming in. So that can create a poor user experience, and that can be detrimental to your business, especially if you're a startup. And on the flip side of that, maybe you over provisioned, you bought enough, hardware to support what you think will happen, and what you think will be the demand upon your service, and maybe it just doesn't happen. Maybe you have a lot of empty space, so to speak, not being utilized. So you've made that investment and it's not giving you a return on your investment. So that's a local, you're responsible for the costs, you're responsible for the updates, you're responsible for maintenance, you're responsible for security, you're responsible for everything. With AWS, it's infrastructure as code is what is how they refer it. You're provisioning your environment, you're provisioning your infrastructure, your servers, your applications, everything that you're doing, your security, your firewalls, you're provisioning it as code. And you can access AWS. The two most popular ways are through a console, which is basically a GUI, a graphical user interface, I think. Basically, you have a console, you click on buttons, and you provision resources. Or you can use the command line interface, AWS's CLI, and then you can provision services through that as well. So the console is really, whenever I teach it, we focus on the console because it is a really great way of to introducing new students to it if they're not familiar with working with the CLI. It's again a graphical user interface, and they click on buttons. They have pretty good documentation, and they're constantly updating, which is sometimes is a sore point whenever you're working with it and you're used to one interface and you log in, it's like they change things again. But that's a
Yes,
difference.
that's a different story. We've got Kim. She's made Kim comment.
Mhm.
My signal is being a pain. I guess message to Kim is if you want to use Amazon Web Services, it may be a pain because if your signal is not there, it might be difficult to access your cloud. Is that correct? Can you hear me, Tasha?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If you are using Amazon Web Services, accessing cloud with a bad signal is very difficult to achieve. Is that correct?
The If you're using Amazon what web services, I don't
Well,
think I understood the question.
okay, no problem. Kim is saying that her signal is
Yes.
being a pain. So
Yes.
if somebody is having problems with the bandwidth, with Wi-Fi, or
Mhm.
with connectivity to the cloud,
Mhm.
can they still access their Amazon Web Services even if they are offline?
Well, it depends. If you're kind of trying to if you're developing on AWS and you need it's accessible through the internet. If there are services that they provide where you don't need direct access, you can do through their Direct Connect or VPN. Um, that it does not necessarily require direct access to the internet, but it really depends on what you're using.
Mm. Well, we see that Kim is now joining us as Write, Learn, and Earn with Kim Vermack on YouTube. And she says, I have moved on to YouTube instead of LinkedIn. Clearly, YouTube has got better
Mhm.
connectivity
Mhm.
today than
Mhm.
LinkedIn, at least for you, Kim. I hope everybody can tune in no matter where you're accessing. We are available on YouTube, on Facebook, as well as on LinkedIn. And if you can't watch us live, you can re-watch this live stream later on. I strongly encourage you to subscribe to our channels, YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Now, off to talk with Tasha Penwell about AWS
Mhm.
services. So, we talked about how it is working. Tell us what it means for average user if, for example, their devices, whether it is machine learning or whether it is, I don't know, programmed Roomba,
Mhm.
if they go down because of AWS,
Mhm.
what is the solution
So
for
if
using
AWS, if I understand your question correctly, AWS provides, they have several different regions and availability zones. There's a concept of a shared responsibility in regards to availability and security. And what the shared responsibility states is basically AWS has their things that they're responsible for maintaining security and availability of resources, and there are some things that are the customer's responsibility that, when it comes to security and maintaining resources and availability of resources. So what a customer could do if, to ensure that they have continued availability. So maybe one server goes down or an availability zone goes down, which is more or less, availability zone is a data center, two or more data centers in a geographical area. But if something goes down, something breaks, if the customer, depending upon the service, and the way the customer has set up their environment, they may be responsible for setting up the redundancies so that the end user can continue to have an optimal experience and that everybody can still access the resources. But and there's a lot of things that it depends. Like one of the things with technology is like, what's the answer? It's like, it depends. It depends what you did. It depends on what you
Hmm.
signed up for. And AWS, they have basically three different levels. There's software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and a platform as a service. And depending on what type of service that you're using, it kind of spaces what your responsibilities are. So if something goes down, if a server goes down, if something happens, depending upon the service and depending upon what the customer had set up for redundancy, will give the answer on continued accessibility if something should happen.
Mm. Okay, we've got Kim asking question again. I have heard that I can use AWS services plugins that allow me to incorporate Amazon shopping categories into a website that I am working with. Is that correct?
I'm not really sure what AWS services plugins. I'm not sure if they're talking about like a WordPress plugin. I guess I need a little bit more clarity on that. But AWS has a variety of different services that integrate well with what you're doing. And if you're looking at plugins for something like a WordPress plugin for a website, there may be something like that. I've not really looked into it. I don't know. Maybe it's something integrates with WooCommerce. If you're talking about selling on Amazon, like if you're looking to be an Amazon seller, that's a completely different story. That's not something that I'm quite as familiar with.
You mean on the platform, Amazon platform, right? Yeah. Okay, let's wait for Kim to clarify her question. And in the meantime, we've got Natalie asking,
Okay.
how long does it take to learn or get AWS certification?
So that's a great question. It depends. the It depends on your background. If you have no tech background, it's going to take a little bit because you got to learn some of the basic fundamentals of technology and then learn the nuances with AWS. I've had students who had a tech background. They had a more of a background with hardware. And within like 3 weeks, they dived in and they spent the time studying. They were just enamored with, AWS. They loved what they were learning. 3 weeks, they passed it. Then I had some students who they don't have the same kind of background and they just don't have the same kind of time to devote to it, and it takes them a little bit longer to pass it. So it's just it depends on the time that you spend focusing on studying, and it depends upon the time and your background as well. Um,
Mhm.
it really does depend.
So, comparing it to, you just mentioned Snapchat. Snapchat is also a learning curve, right? You have to learn which filters to use, how to use it, and how to build a momentum building your account. You're a marketer. So,
Mhm.
how would you compare AWS to Snapchat? What is there that we need to pay close attention to and focus on most, and other things that are not so relevant?
So, AWS and Snapchat, they're completely separate platforms. AWS is cloud computing. They do have an application where you can build AR environments and VR environments with Snapchat. I'm sorry, with AWS. Snapchat is a social media platform, and it's really well known for its filters and communication, and just the things that are social media. So, in regards to learning about the different ones, they're pretty different. It depends on what your interests are. And for example, if you like a little bit of creativity, and if you like to, if you like to combine the analytical and the creativity side of things, you might like Snapchat. Because especially if you're wanting to be a lens developer, which is one of the things that I do, you're as a lens developer, create filters for Snapchat. It's free to do. That's one of the things I was talking about yesterday in my presentation. um, and it's a learning curve, but like everything is, everything, the similarity between AWS and Snapchat and anything in tech, there's a learning curve. You just kind of keep going at it, fail a lot, and succeed a lot. So that's what Snapchat is. If you like analytical and you like creativity, I think Snapchat would be a really great platform for anybody to get start developing lenses, like for free, completely for free. And you can publish it for free. The filters that I've made so far, they have had around 2.5 million views and plays. So I've had a lot of fun with them. I've had a lot of successes with them. One of the most recent ones I've been developing are for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm from Ohio. I'm in Mississippi, but I'm from Ohio, and huge Bengals fan. So I've been creating a lot of filters for the Bengals. I have one that I've developed a little over a week ago, and it's had almost 100,000 plays and views. So that's awesome. And
Mm.
again, completely for free. For the AWS
So,
site, go ahead.
For yes, I would like to focus more on AWC because it's not a topic about Snapchat. What I meant by comparing the two, and of course I get it, it's completely different
Yeah.
use, and it's a completely different solutions you
Mhm,
can get. What are because like with Snapchat, you need to know that there are filters.
mhm,
There you can build some things on your own, and you can use a little bit of AR
mhm,
or VR with your filter and to go around the zoo or see an animal appearing in your bedroom. That's quite clear.
mhm,
What AWS means to the user who's never used it, and
mhm.
just like with Snapchat, there are three things that you need to know. What are the three things that you need to know when you want to delve into learning AWS?
You need to have like a basic background in technology, and that doesn't it just if you don't have a basic background, that doesn't exclude you from learning AWS. It just might mean it might take a little bit longer. You need to have some basic background in business knowledge, like understanding, capital expenditures and why somebody would make a choice in choosing the cloud versus on premise, which is basically like a local hosting. And, in my opinion, you just need to be curious. You need to play with things, you need to break things, and then you need to kind of figure out how to put them together.
And what inspired you to do the, AWS certificate?
Honestly, it's because when I used to work in higher ed, and I was a computer science program manager there, and I was trying to find things that would intrigue our students that promote our school. And I learned about cloud computing. I didn't really know anything about it prior to then. And I reached out to Google and I reached out to AWS, and AWS is the first one who responded. That is it. That's the reason I went on the AWS training. I've been on it ever since because I find it completely fascinating. The things that you can do, the things you can build, it removes any kind of barriers. If you have an idea you want to launch and you just don't have the funding to support it when it comes to technology wise, you can launch anything on AWS. And it's just a lot of fun. You can experiment in ways that maybe you couldn't have before. My bachelor's is in IT, and my career has just not I didn't get really to play with a whole lot of computers. That's just not the way that my career went. But whenever I learned about AWS, it allowed me to play with computers virtually and build up applications virtually and just hone in on my interest, even if the opportunity did not present itself in my career path. I was able to just go in AWS and explore and play and be curious.
Mm, absolutely. It's always be curious. It
Hmm.
happens with all the technologies all over the world. And it doesn't matter whether it's Amazon Web Service, whether it's Google Web Services, or as we know, we actually met during a meeting of women tech makers, which is also a learning curve.
Hmm.
So, you as an educator, does it mean that you are forever learning? It's been quite a long discussion we had because you've touched upon Snapchat, you touched upon AWS. What else is there that that was very useful for a technologist like you?
Alexa Skills, that's the other platform. It's Alexa is the voice user interface that I think most people are familiar with right now. So just how you have mobile apps for your cell phone, Alexa has skills. So you can think of a skill as an app for a cell phone, and you can develop your own custom skills and have people play with it. You can monetize it. You can promote your business, and that's something else that I enjoy developing. And the thing that I think is interesting whenever I talk with students, they may not have a natural interest in JavaScript. So JavaScript is the programming language that both Lens Studio and Alexa is built upon. So they may not have a natural interest in JavaScript and the libraries and functions and frameworks and all that stuff. And if I'm completely honest with you, I am good at HTML and CSS, and I'm decent at JavaScript and Python, because just at the JavaScript and Python as a whole, it doesn't really intrigue me that much. It's like, it's fine. But I really want to improve my skills as a Lens developer for Snapchat, and I really want to improve my skills as an Alexa developer for Amazon's Alexa platform. So, since both of those are based off JavaScript, I need to improve my skills on JavaScript, because I want to improve my skills as a Lens developer and as an Alexa developer. So that for me gave me the motivation of, like, I need to improve my JavaScript skills, because this is what I want to do and this is what I need to do to get there.
And also, there are lots of similarities. Just last week, we talked to Madonna Wambua, which is also expert of Google, and she talked about the fact that it's so much easier to go into new programming language when you have the basic skills, whether
Mhm.
it's Java, whether it's Kubernetes, whatever there is that you learned in the past, it's much easier to get it once you sit in front of your screen.
Mhm.
So let's go back to the AWS. Let's imagine Kim has mentioned her business, which is Write and Learn and Earn with Kim Vermaak. And I'm wondering what this person or whoever else entrepreneur should do when they want to move their um, capacity into Amazon Web Services. Is there step by step instruction, or what would you advise for a small business to not pay for services?
Again, it would depend. It depends. AWS provides multiple ways that you can migrate from on-prem to AWS. It depends on your infrastructure and depends on what you're migrating. It depends on the amount of data. It just depends. Like, if it's something that's legacy and you maybe just need to repurchase something, you may be able to rehost it, you may need to repurchase it. And it depends on your internet speed. You may have to use a service like Snowball to migrate the data. It depends. But to answer the question as simplistic as I can, AWS does provide services. They provide a lot of great documentation and resources to help you navigate which is the best way for you, depending upon your scenario.
Right. You mentioned a couple of things here. What is Snowball, if you could explain to our viewers?
Snowball is basically, it's a device that AWS will ship to you, and you can upload the data and then you ship it back to Amazon. So if you have a lot of data, or if you don't have the internet capacity or bandwidth to transfer the data to AWS servers, then you can do this other way. Basically, they ship you a device and you upload it, and then you can send it back to AWS.
Okay, that's very interesting. And then, in case you want to move from AWS into your own infrastructure, is it easy or is it tricky?
It depends.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's change the title of today's discussion: How to Cultivate It Depends.
It really depends. I mean, you can extract the data, you can extract everything. It depends on how your endpoints are set up. It depends on how the servers are set up. Like if they're wanting to migrate from, I mean, people do it. They decide for one reason or another, compliance, cost, etc., that the cloud is not for them. Um, to do it's not going to be like a one and done one day kind of thing, depending on what kind of environment you're migrating from the cloud to on-prem. If you how much data you have to migrate, the applications that you're using. So cloud computing with AWS is not just cloud computing, so to speak. It's not just servers that you can use, you're renting more or less. It's also, there's a lot of applications you can build using AWS specific resources. So if you're using an AWS specific service or resource to build something and you decide you don't want to use that anymore, then you would need to find a comparable and to do it on-prem.
So, what are the resources that are available on AWS, or what are the most popular resources available uh, for somebody who wants to use AWS?
That somebody who wants to what?
Use AWS.
Okay. So for the service, you're asking about the resources that are available for anybody who wants to use AWS, is that correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
To use it or to learn about it?
To use it.
To
Let's
use it.
let's go to use it and learn. You just don't need to ask me question. You know the topic from inside out, and
Okay.
you just go for it.
Okay. So to use it, basically all you need to do is, create an AWS account, and it does require a credit card. And you go in there and you sign up for an AWS account, and there's a lot of great documentation. It does require a credit card. That's upfront for you to create an AWS account, and you just start. You can create a web server in 5 minutes. You can you can launch web servers. You can launch a WordPress website within a few minutes. You'd be spending more time designing the WordPress website than you would be deploying it, because everything can be done within minutes.
Mm. So we have comment from Caleb, a great initiative. Wankugu. I'm sorry if I say your name not correct. He's joining us from Mbale, and I hope that in Mbale they are also available. AWS is also available, because some places in Africa have no internet access.
Hmm.
So, as you commented, if you are looking for AWS services have bad connectivity, you can use their snowball
Hmm.
device,
Hmm.
which is sent to them.
Hmm.
Now, as a learning curve and learning, practicing, and using their services, you mentioned some resources, and using some of their applications and selling onwards some of their applications
Hmm.
to your need, onwards to your customers.
Hmm.
What or how can you do that, or what businesses can do that?
The so you know, to use the services within it, I'm not sure if I understood the question right, but to use the services within AWS, anybody can use any type of service. There's over 200 services and resources within AWS, and they're divided, between computing and databases, AR, VR, gaming, IoT, networking. There's over 200 services within AWS, and anybody can use any of them, really. The big
have
thing is,
you have you built something?
have I built
Have you
something?
managed? Yes.
I currently I have some websites hosted on AWS, just because of the ease of deploying. And I like the fact that you only pay for what you use. And so that's currently what I have on AWS. Everything else that I've built has been more of a focus on Alexa. And honestly, some of those are kind of dated. I need to update those.
Okay, so hopefully you can share it with our community,
Mhm.
and I encourage you to check out the uh, your bits and bytes. If you could tell us also what is that? Why did you set up this organization? Bytes and bits.
Bytes and Bits, yes. So it's set up in Gallipolis, Ohio, which is a small rural town in southeastern Ohio, and we're right along the Ohio River. And I set it up because like I said, I used to work in higher ed, and I got a little frustrated with some of the barriers of learning in a higher ed environment, and I wanted to create Bytes and Bits to remove those barriers.
Right. What kind of barriers did you manage to remove?
So the cost factor. So as we all know, college, higher ed costs a lot of money. And the by either providing services at no cost, or at a very reduced rate because I have income through other means, the I'm able to give them the opportunities to explore, to have something to kind of light that spark. And hopefully, the idea is that they will continue to compel and just compound upon that and just continue to grow in their curiosity. Um, one example is I volunteer at Field of Hope, which is a drug and alcohol rehabilitation clinic. And so I teach the ladies basic computer skills like Google Sheets, Google Docs. I've been doing that for about 3 years now. And one of the things that I've learned, that I've witnessed, some things that I thought were like everybody knows how to do this, they don't.
Mhm.
Like opening up a Chrome browser. If I ask them to open up Chrome, they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to open up
Mm.
Google Docs. They don't know how to open up Google Sheets. That's not for everybody. That's not saying that's everybody, but there's been a surprising amount that was surprising to me how many did not have what I kind of conceive as basic computer skills. And in today's world, if you don't have basic computer skills, you can't really do much else. You can't really go to college because that's going to be a big barrier. Just like there's an assumption you know how to open up Chrome, you know how to use Google Docs, and that's not the case for some of these ladies. And by giving them the skills to do some of these, what a lot of us are just assuming small and everyday tasks, they can build up their confidence and go to the next level. And that next level can be their GED, that next level can be a job, that next level can be college. But it gives them something to have a standing leg on, whereas before they didn't have anything.
Mm. That's quite interesting to hear that still some people are lacking technology skills. They
Mhm,
don't know how to browse. As we know, we probably all have heard the story of old lady typing into search, Google search,
mhm,
"Hey Google, I would like to find the shop, thank you."
mhm,
So that all in one line, thanking Google for their services.
mhm,
Well, I hope your and our viewers today know how to use Google, how to use Google spreadsheets and
mhm.
all the web services available on Google Cloud. How is Google Cloud different to AWS?
How is what? I'm sorry.
Google Cloud different or similar?
They're both cloud-based services. I don't really have experience with GCP, which is the Google Cloud Platform. Everything I do is AWS related. Um, but they're both cloud services. They're both very popular cloud services. Um, they the thing is, when you learn about the cloud, if you learn about one, the learning curve is much easier for the next one because it's usually just difference in terminologies. Um, the I had whenever I worked in higher ed, one of my adjuncts, he was teaching a database class, and we were talking about using AWS, incorporating AWS into the class. And he was a GCP. He had GCP certification. He had a Google Cloud Practitioner certification. And I had asked him, it's like if he felt comfortable with AWS. And he said it was fine. Because the learning curve, you learn one, it's a lot easier to learn the next one. A lot of those skills are very transferable. Again, it's just a matter of terminology and any other kind of the nuances within services. And the gentleman was also on my advisory board whenever we were, working on creating a new program at the college that I worked at. And we was debating on should we do AWS or should we, look into GCP. And he confirmed that, again, the skills are transferable. You learn one, the learning curve is fairly easy for another one. But he did say that AWS is the lead in the cloud computing environment, so he would stick with AWS.
Excellent. It doesn't matter whether you choose AWS or whether you choose Google Web Services, it is transferable. Now, Tasha, we are heading towards the end of our show. I have a couple of questions.
Mhm,
Um, what do you mean when you say education equals opportunities?
The to me, I my background, without going into the weeds of it, I was in my early 20s, twice divorced, and I had a 4-year-old. I was a single mom. My confidence was, in the gutter. I had luckily had the opportunities to go back to school because I hadn't finished my college degrees yet. To go back to school, I was 28 when I got my associates, and what I had learned from that whole period of time is that the more I invested in my education, the more opportunities that I had. And that's where education equals opportunities. Education could be formal education could be informal education, education can be whatever type of education it is. It doesn't matter as long as you're learning. And that gives you more opportunities to do something that you want to do. My husband and I were talking about this last night, and as we had also talked about, Richard Branson is one of my favorite authors, and we talk about his books a little bit. His attitude is, if he doesn't enjoy something, he's not doing it. And my husband and I were talking about, last night. I was like, if I don't enjoy something, I'm not doing it. And if I feel like I'm not being challenged, I don't doing it. And I've worked really hard to be able to say I don't want to do something if I don't enjoy it. But me working hard was investing in my education. Me investing in my education provides me the opportunities to focus on what I enjoy and less on what I don't enjoy. So education gives you opportunities, education gives you confidence, education gives you a lot of things that may not have happened otherwise. My son, like I said, he was young. I was a single mom. He's now 23, and he's seen me, work hard to achieve what I do have, and he sees me continue to work hard to achieve what I want to do next.
So is he going into the steps of his mom and also is in technology?
Well, no, he was like completely, I don't want to do that. He's actually an electrical apprentice, and but he sees what I'm doing, and he's actually starting to pay a little bit more attention. And he's like, "That's kinda neat." I'm like, "It is, isn't it?" And he's like, "How do you do that?" I was like, "Do you want me to teach you, or do you want me to give you resources and you come to me and ask questions?" He's like, "Give me resources, I'll come to you if I have questions." Like, "Okay."
That's very cool. You also mentioned in our conversation about some figure salary that is waiting at the end of that route of everlasting learning.
Mhm,
Tell us about that opportunities for somebody who wants to develop their knowledge, whether it's with AWS, Google, WS, or
mhm.
whatever it is in technology.
So what I would tell them is to just to go out and explore and not to be afraid to fail. Fear of failure is like a really legitimate thing, and I still struggle with it. And you got to embrace the suck more or less when it comes to learning. And what I mean is that some things are not going to work. It's going to get frustrating. Whenever I was teaching, coding classes, I would say, this is fun, frustrating, and another F word, and the other F word would depend upon the day. And, and that is still true no matter what it is. So you got to have that mentality of it's fun, frustrating, and another F word. And sometimes that other F word is not fabulous. Um, so you gotta fail forward. I went to a conference and they told me fail was the first attempt in learning, and I love that because it's okay if
Mhm.
it doesn't work. So if you're
Mhm.
wanting to, there's so many different opportunities out there. AWS has a lot of different resources that are available at no charge. Google also has the same. Microsoft, which has their version is Azure, has the same. A lot of great resources. Snapchat, talking about lenses, all for free, uh, costing nothing. You just got to invest the time. The time is usually the killer. The time or the interest. So
Mm.
build in the time that's reasonable for you, and find something that piques your interest.
Well, as Guy Kawasaki, our guest,
Mhm.
just 6 months or more than 6 months ago, said, better to fail at doing the right thing than to succeed at doing the wrong
Mhm.
thing, whatever it is, whatever your future might be, you definitely need to explore that path.
Mhm.
Now, what is a number one book you can sit and think, oh, I wish I read it before I started my career?
That would be Richard Branson's The Virgin Way. So Richard Branson, he's the founder of Virgin Hotels, Virgin Airlines, Virgin, just about anything Virgin brand. Um, and his attitude is just like he's got a couple different attitudes that I love, and he talks about in this book. One I mentioned earlier, it's like if I don't enjoy it, I'm not doing it. If it doesn't
Mhm.
sound like fun, I'm not doing it. And the other one that he has is screw it, let's do it. If something sounds like a good idea, you don't necessarily know how it's all going to pan out, may be great, may not, but just screw it and let's do it because you don't know until you try. And my husband and I have conversations on about that. And, I talk about an idea that I have, and he's like, well, you don't know how it's going to turn out. I was like, no, I don't, but let's try it and see what happens.
That's very interesting because I'm a big fan of Richard Branson as well. And I like his quotation, which is opportunity is like a bus. There always will be a next one.
Yes.
Uh, but whenever I mention that I love Richard Branson and I would love to go on a plane of Virgin Atlantic one day, he always says, "Oh, you don't know because he's a privileged background and he had a lot of money to start his businesses, so it was an easy way for him." So I wonder what's your take on that, especially that you're supporting the underprivileged in your
The
community.
if you know his background, he was not. I mean, he had a good support system. He had a good, sounds like a good parents, good role models, based off his books. But he did not really have any exceptional privileges. He's dyslexic, so he has a learning disability. He had to struggle a lot, but he found his voice. So I would
Mm.
recommend, anybody to do the same. I had my struggles, like I said, when I was in my early 20s, and it took me a while to find my voice and to find what to build up my curiosity. So I actually had somebody tell me that I was lucky to have everything that I had, and I got hot for a minute. I'm like, no, 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 no. I've worked really hard and I've been lucky with some of those opportunities that's come my way, but I've worked hard to have those opportunities and be ready for those opportunities when they come my way. Richard Branson also has another quote that I love, and I'm going to paraphrase it here a little bit, but basically, if somebody gives you an opportunity, just say yes and figure out how to do it later. Because we don't know what we don't know, and we often underestimate ourselves in regards to what we can learn if you just devote the time and the effort. Everybody's got different learning styles, so that's something you would need to invest in on your own particular learning style. I've had to change my learning style when I was learning about AWS and then still learning about AWS. I was in school. In school, I was like the smart one. Like I got good grades. I didn't really have to work for them. And then I think one of the other reasons I like AWS is like this is hard. But it's fun because it's hard and because it's more rewarding when you have those wins. So, everybody's got a different opportunities. Everybody's got a different background. But it matters what you do with them. And
Mm.
you can let it destroy you, or it can have the attitude of just watch me, you know?
Absolutely. Well, Richard Branson, speaking of another quotation, says, all of life is luck,
Hmm.
which I think falls into your idea of learning and trying and working hard.
Hmm.
Now, are you working on any exciting projects right now, Tasha?
The currently I'm working on a book. I'm writing a book on AWS security, so that's something that I've been working on. I'm actually working on preparing for my AWS security certification. So my interest, aside from like the Snapchat creative side, is security. That's kind of where just my interests go. And so I have more of an interest in security. I build websites. I'm kind of like all over the place. So to answer your question, where I'm working right now, I'm writing a book on AWS security. I'm writing a book on Snapchat filters. I am preparing for my AWS certification for security. And then I'm preparing to teach some more classes, specifically in Guy County and for some other schools.
Mm. So you mentioned the fact that you were boiling when somebody said you had it easy, and Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are in hot water."
Mhm.
In life, how are you in hot water? How is Tasha brewing?
How was what?
How are you brewing? Are you
Oh,
cool and collected, or
yeah.
you want to sort out whatever problems might be?
I'm pretty, I'm pretty calm. I mean, I still get a little agitated if somebody just makes assumptions about me, but instead of fighting, I just work really hard to prove them wrong. Talking about the Snapchat filters, I proposed that as an idea to somebody that I used to work under, and they kind of ignored me, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And it's kind of led to where it's at right now. So
Mm.
I don't really get mad. The I just like work really hard to prove them wrong, and just gonna go with it.
Let's call it a mint tea, cool and collected.
Yes.
Tasha Penwell.
Mhm.
Now, can you please give us your life lesson quote and how did it change you?
The favorite life lesson quote. Um, kind of what I was saying earlier, but like Richard Branson, just screw it, let's do it. Just try it and find out. Um, Life is too short to have regrets and things of what
Mm.
could have happened, what should have happened. So what one of the things that I like to do, everybody has to kind of have that what if game. What if I didn't do this? Mine could have been what if I graduated college like earlier and not in my late 20s. I could play that what if game. But it doesn't change anything. But what if I invest in my learning now? What if I continue to invest in my skills as a Lens developer, as an Alexa developer, as AWS security? Where will that leave me in the next year, next 2 years, next 3 years? So I guess I maybe to answer that question, I would say don't worry about the what ifs of the past. Nothing can do to change that. You're not going to get those years back. What you can do is like what if what on the what ifs, what can happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years, so on and so forth. And what can you do now to be where you want to be there? And you may not even necessarily know. Pivot.
Mm.
I pivot all the time.
Oh, yes, you do, because actually, your answer to that question is a completely different quotation. And let me remind you what you said is your favorite life lesson quote. You
Mhm.
can't connect the dots looking forward, you
Yeah,
can
that too.
only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in the future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. This approach has never let me down and it has made all the difference in my life, Steve Jobs says.
Yes.
So I guess with Tasha, the topic, and going back to that quotation quote we used, it depends on the circumstances. Now, Tasha, imagine the pandemic is over, we have no war, we have no worries, and you can choose any person in the world to have breakfast anywhere in the world. Who would you choose and where would you go to?
Richard Branson or Gary Vaynerchuk, and if he was still alive, Steve Jobs. The Yes, so Richard Branson, I've already talked about Richard Branson. I'm a fan with him, and Gary Vaynerchuk, he's got such a different mindset, and I love that mindset. And basically, I would go to a small coffee shop. Something small, locally owned, and just have some conversations with them and learn from them, pick their brains, and just try to absorb their attitudes.
Oh,
I read
that would be breakfast of masters, I guess. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of Gary Vee as well,
Mhm,
and I love their attitude, can
mhm,
do attitude. So we definitely support that. Now, I think this is all from today's show. I hope you are convinced to go with Amazon Web Services or whatever technical skill you would like to pursue in your future.
mhm.
It's definitely cultivation of your knowledge, of your education is the way to go. Tasha, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you very much also to our commenters, Kim Vermak, Natalie Lianto, Caleb Vagnugu. And I would like to also remind you, tune in next week on Wednesday at the same time, 6 p.m. CET, 12 p.m. EST. We are going to have next week, You Don't Need Money to Start the Agency of the Future, which is a quotation of Cindy Gallop. Tasha, thank you so much for today's show. That's it from episode 89 of the PhD live stream today. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Woman on It and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking and goes, look for something positive each day, even if some days you have to work harder.
Mhm.
And remember to pivot
Pivot.
depends on your circumstances. And finally, as Maya Angelou says, if you don't like something, change it. If you
Mhm,
can't change it, change your attitude.
mhm.
Today is your day to hack the future, hack the positivity you want. Thank you.
Thank you.